an article I read that was actually an interview with a manager at Microsoft. So he was a software engineer who does a ton of work at Microsoft, and his job is to write code. Which last week, if you listened, I think it was last week or the week before, I talked about how Google's bragging that AI is writing 25% of new code. And I went, I'd love to see how you're measuring that. But reading this article was interesting because it kind of validated what I was hinting at there, in that his whole point of view on this was, yes, AI is doing a large amount of my coding now, and I am no less busy than I was before. And in digging into our interview and him sharing kind of what he's doing and how he's spending his time, it was really interesting hearing exactly how he's relocated his time. He's able to meet tighter deadlines. He's moving his timelines forward. One of the things I didn't think he shared enough of, and I think this is one of the biggest risks of AI, is he did talk more about how he's just speeding everything up and performing more, which is very much one of the big things people are talking about AI right now. Oh, look how much more we can do. Look how much faster we can do it. And I think there's room for that. I think the part that we also need to consider that I don't think this article brought to light as much was there are things that you weren't doing before that AI can free up your time to be able to do. Now, even going back to the doctor example with this, I would much rather have a physician who is deeply engaged with me as a patient, can take the time to help me understand the procedure I'm about to have done, and work with me on, my plan for recovery and all this stuff, and be able to be fully engaged and commit that time to that, because they're able to, have a robot take care of the actual procedure, and they can better use that time for something else. They can go spend that quality time with another patient while the robot does the surgery, and they can quickly rush to the ER if something goes sideways. Like, great. That, I think, gets missed in some of this. And it was missed in this entrepreneur article about, the Microsoft manager who is still super busy. But I also think it's a message to senior leaders that this idea that, hey, if we just implement AI, we aren't going to need as many people. It is not true. It's just not true. And I think any of us can relate to that on the level of, we can all think about the times where, I don't know, you have a day that's packed with meetings and a bunch of your meetings get canceled. Do you get to the end of the day and do you go, wow, what a relaxing day I had? I got all caught up on everything that I wanted to do. It was amazing. No, you still get to the end of the day and go, I didn't get the things done I needed to get done, and I'm still wiped. Why? Because things fill in the cracks. And that's what his example was really highlighting was, yeah, okay, AI is doing more of my coding, but I'm not any less busy. I'm not working any less because of that, which I, in some ways, think is concerning. And it ties to a historical trend. I don't remember what class I was taking, but I remember reading about history as the Industrial Revolution was kicking off, and how people were like, oh, by the whatever years, people are only going to be working 10 or 15 hours a week because and it's like, people are more burned out in 2024 than they have been in all of human history. And we have more technology and automation at our hands than we ever have. So this idea that innovation advancement is going to somehow free us up, and boy, we're just going to sit on a beach drinking Mai Tais. Like, history doesn't support it. Now, here's the other article I read that I think ties to this. For those of you who may be in an organization that you're feeling a lot of the heat, a lot of the pressure, we need to be moving forward with this AI. I did come across, and it was a slash survey study article type thing. It was on localnewsmatters.org. So I don't know that that's actually the original source for it. But what it was it was highlighting a survey or some research about how slow companies are to adopting AI and how much slower that's moving than anticipated. And, some of the examples of the things that came up in there, and I'm actually going to see if I can pull it up while I'm talking about it, was that the reasons for it. Okay, so I did manage to find it here. The reasons why it's slow is, the biggest one was volume of data, 56%. is one of the reasons, the biggest hangups. The hardware was right up there at 50%. Data storage, ability to capture data, like data, data and hardware were at the very top of the list. So as you went down the list, you started to see like, oh, it can, hallucinate, and we aren't sure how it can protect customer and client privacy, and there's cybersecurity risks. Like those were still significant, but they were down in like the 30s. So it was interesting reading that article because it was like, most companies don't even have the infrastructure to support the evolution. And if you read the headlines, you go, well, everybody's on Microsoft 365 or Google Workspace. Don't they just have, Gemini and Copilot? Doesn't that just fix it all? And it's like, no, it doesn't. Like that fixes I have a chat bot that can help me draft an email or make my PowerPoint for tomorrow, but it's not necessarily, creating a AI assistant that is actually measurably helping me do my job. And even getting to that point, there's a lot of work. And this ties to some of the things that I said in the previous point, that lack of data, the data pain points, which took up a large majority of the barriers, they're significant. And it goes back to, in this live stream I talked about today, what's happening with AI in a lot of organizations right now is they've been operating off assumptions because things just worked. They happened. Quarter to quarter earnings happened, and we moved and things worked, and we rolled out a new initiative. We aren't even really sure if it worked or not, but like things moved and things happened, and we're making money, and so we're fine. And so a lot of assumptions were made. A lot of people just went off this stuff. Well, now AI is coming in, and people are going, great, AI, help us do this stuff. And AI is not physically having this conversation with you. Well, maybe it is, but it's like, help you with what? It's like that thing. It's like, what thing? Right there. Okay. Like, how do you want that done? I don't know. Like the way they're doing it now. Well, do you have any data on how that's being done now? Don't we have a report somewhere? Well, we have 7 reports, and the reports are all different. We're not sure which one's accurate. And half of what's in it doesn't describe what Bill or Jane have in their head that they just do. So AI, can you help with that? Well, I mean, not really. And it creates major resistance for organizations. And so for some of the folks who, like I said, I still firmly adhere to the fact that every job will be radically changed by AI. Every single job will be radically changed by AI. I don't back down from that one bit. Do I think it's going to be 2025? Everybody's job is going to be night and day different? No, even though that was in many cases what was being hyped up as, by 2025, half your employee base is going to be AI agents. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. It's going to take time. I think only when I looked at let me look back at it. It was like less than 10% of organizations even use Gen AI broadly. Now, granted, I guarantee if you were to dig into that data, that's, company authorized use of Gen AI. I think a lot more people than 10% are using Gen AI in their day-to-day activity. But in terms of company authorized, active, big enterprise use of AI, less than 10%. And that, I will tell you from being involved in research studies, I would say it's probably a fraction of that less than 10%. Because the companies who are promoting, yeah, we're totally using Gen AI, it's part of a marketing brand campaign, and there's a culture tied to it. And so you're going to have people who are saying they're using it because that's what you're supposed to say. And when you actually dig into so show me, where exactly is AI transforming your business? I would say it is probably far less than 10%. And so I guess that's some good news for folks. If you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed or feeling like, oh my gosh, AI is just taking over jobs left and right, it's not. And if anything, I have seen more and more companies actually pull back on things as we've come into the end of 2024 because they've maybe done some things and they've gotten burned. What I don't think is going to happen is what you sometimes see where people get burned, so they overreact, and then they go back to we're banning AI as a whole. It's too ubiquitous now. There's no going back from this. And even things that weren't so ubiquitous or were super ubiquitous, where we have let's use the return to office example where it's like, well, some companies are trying to go back to the office. It's like, yeah, look how that's going for them. I was going to include it in this today, but even Amazon's running into some major challenges with their efforts to say everybody must be back in the office. So it's kind of one of those things where once you cross a certain threshold, there's no going back. And I think we're definitely there with AI, but it's not moving at the pace that it was being projected before. So if you're stressed, nervous, overwhelmed by that, you can at least take, a little breath of fresh air. You've got some time to adopt and adapt and pick that up. But here's my warning. If you're one of those AI resistors who doesn't want to engage, who's like, I'm just going to deny this, stick my head in the sand and hope, be careful, because it is coming and it is disrupting things. And when I talk to people in organizations, it is, again, that's why I don't agree with the, oh yeah, we only use it across the organization, less than 10%. It's being used all over the place, just differently than companies recognize. And it is differentiating people and their abilities. So don't be a resistor to it. Just figure out, going back to the whole theme of this one, deconstruct what you're doing and then reconstruct it in a new and better way.